watching the Forefront Church video podcast. And wherever you're at viewing online, we just want to say thank you and welcome. And one of the ways that we can help connect with you is we want to hear from you and where you're at and how we can help. And so head over to forefrontchurch.info after the message and click the Connect tab. It's a great way for us to help you along your spiritual journey as you connect with God and learn about Jesus. And so sit back, relax. We hope that you're challenged and encouraged from today's message.
The fact is, it's embarrassing to open up about mental illness. But staying silent brings on an unnecessary label of shame on ourselves. If we stay silent, we can't bring anyone into a deeper level of understanding. And if others don't understand, they can't learn empathy or genuine concern for people who struggle. That comes from the introduction of a book called Fundamentalist, which is a memoir written by a pastor turned podcaster, and he writes about what it was like to grow up as a youth group kid and become a pastor, all while battling anxiety, depression, relationship issues. It is a fantastic read that I recommend. I will warn you, it is a rated R read. He pokes a lot of fun at himself, and he's very open about his struggles. But it's a fantastic read. But that quote, the need to be open about mental illness, is the tone that I want to set for today as we talk about depression in our series, The War Within. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. I don't want to talk all about me today, but my story informs where we're going. My name is Chris. Some of you know me, but if you're new to Forefront, I'm glad you're here with us. I used to be a pastor on staff here, and about a couple years ago, I left that role to go work in mental health full-time. So I'm a former pastor, current therapist, mental health worker, but I'm also a depression struggler. I'm a depression fighter. And I'm going to give you just a little bit of what that story is like for me. It really came to a head in 2010 for me. I can look back as a teenager, a middle school kid, a high school kid, and now like, oh no, it started way before 2010. But it started making sense to me in about 2010. I had lost a job that was really important to me, and it happened in a very ugly way, very hurtful way. And as a result of losing the job, I moved back in with my parents, which I was 27, 28 years old. Who wants to do that? If you want to do that, then we have a different message for you later. But I was 27, 28 years old, lost my job, had to move in with my parents. During that time, I was working as an intern and a resident in mental health, trying to get my therapy license, which basically meant overworked, underpaid, overtime, crushing it. I wanted to get that stuff done. I initially thought I was going to live with my folks for maybe 6 months, turned into about 2 years. And all along, as that was happening, other things happened in my life. I got caught up in some drama with some friends that was just unnecessary. I was in a romantic relationship that didn't pan out. And so all of these things culminated at the same time, and it just broke me. Like, have you ever been there? You're like, yeah, sometimes, some bad things happen, we get through it, but then it all kind of hits at once, and you're just like, I'm done. And I was done. I had a night, I remember again, 28-year-old grown man in his parents' house, and I grabbed my mom, and I was about to break down. I said, I just need to talk right now, which I'm not a talker. Don't let this fool you. I'm not a talker. I grabbed my mom. I just need to talk. And like she could see in my eyes, she said, do I need to get your dad too? So she went, we all just sat down, and I just, I was like, I'm broke. I'm living with you guys. This girl doesn't love me anymore. Like, what is, and like, I just broke down. I just broke down. I don't think they knew what to do with it. They were cool though. They listened, they talked. My dad was really good about just being able to like comfort. He got a good spirit about him. And anyways, as I was going through that phase, I started making some poor decisions to cope. I ain't gonna tell you what they are because it's none of your business. But I started doing some, poor coping decisions, things that were not healthy for me. Now, I didn't get in trouble, nothing like crazy. But I just remember waking up one morning trying to like find some peace with my situation after one of these really dumb nights. And I woke up and I said, "You gotta make a choice, buddy. Like, you can keep being this guy, or you can go get some help." And thankfully, I, worked at a mental health practice, and so I didn't really know if I could go to the place I worked for help, but I was like, I gotta at least get the conversation started. I went to my supervisor, I said, "Here's where I'm at, like I'm broke, I don't have insurance, my life is awful, and all the stuff I've just been telling you guys about, I just poured it out." And she says, "Well, let's get you some help." So she hooks me up with a therapist that works in our office, lets me see him for some therapy, no charge, takes good care of me. She refers me to see one of our doctors to see if medicine is something I could benefit from. The doctor sees me, no charge. Sweet little Filipino gal, a memory that sticks in my head. And I've shared this part of the story a couple years ago when we did a series called Mirror, Mirror on these topics, but I remember finally I get into the office with her. She sits me down and she's like, "What's going on?" And I go over like, "Oh my gosh, everything is going on." I go over it with her. And she like looks at me like, you ever have someone like just cut you with their eyes and you're like, whatever comes out of their mouth, I need to pay attention. She just gave me that look. And again, sweet older Filipino gal, very good spirit about her. And she just says, "Honey, you and me work really hard to help people. We have to help each other first. You should ask me for help sooner." And I just broke because I didn't even know I was allowed. I'm supposed to be the therapist and I didn't know I could. And she took good care of me. I said, "Well, what do I do?" I was like, "I don't have money. I don't have insurance." She said, "I got you. I will take care of you." And she hooked me up with medication as needed. And like, she pretty much had me straight on medication for a couple years. But not just like prescribed, like she hooked it up for me because I couldn't take care of it for myself. I recognize for me that's a blessing some people don't get the opportunity to have. So I was very thankful for this. And it's funny because like we walk into the office, she kind of look at me, "You need some more?" I'm like, "Yeah, you got some more?" She kept me going. And to this day, like I credit her for saving my life. I started kind of getting back on balance. And then in 2014, my dad passed away unexpectedly. And it's like the cycle started all over again. Except this time, panic attacks got into the mix. So that was a good little side alley there. Lots of fun. If you've ever had a panic attack, you know what I'm talking about. They are terrifying. I can remember waking up in the middle of the night believing I was going to die. And just like, it's done. Nothing I can do here. So after that occurrence, I started waking up to some other things. I was like, okay, I saw that therapist for a little bit. I've been using the medication like the doctor hooked me up with. I was like, but the cycle is starting again. I have to start really figuring this out. And so I started taking other things seriously, started changing the way I ate, started exercising more, started being more open and transparent with some friends. And I consider myself to do pretty well with depression for somebody who battles depression. That's my story in a nutshell. And the thing is, my story is really not that important today. I'm just sharing it with you because I know it's your story, or it's the story of someone you love, or it's the story of somebody that you work with. And I want us to be able to talk openly about what depression is like and what we go through with it. When it comes to mental health in general, vocabulary really matters because words get thrown around like nothing. I mean, how many times have your friends been like, "Oh man, did you see the game last night? That was depressing." Talk to somebody with depression and they're like, "That is not depressing. That is a football game." Or you're talking to somebody and they're like throwing all these like, "Man, that Hampton Roads weather, man, it's bipolar out there, huh?" That's almost appropriate, but it's not appropriate. Or someone's like, man, my ex, they're psychotic, they're crazy. Those words actually mean real things, and they get thrown around. And now I know I'm not going to sit here and be the guy that's like, stop using these words inappropriate. It's going to happen. That's how our culture talks. I get it. I'm just saying, like, when you're dealing with folks who have real mental illnesses, those words mean things. And so I want to kind of give us a working definition of what we talk about when we talk about actual depression. Not like, hey, I'm having a sad day, or I'm having a bad day, or I'm a little nervous today. All of us are going to have those days. Those are normal. You're supposed to have that from time to time. But when we talk about someone who is like clinically mental health level depressed, we're talking about someone who experiences these things to a level where they can't function on a day-to-day basis. There's no explanation for what's going on. Like, if you have a bad day at work, then we understand, okay, you're cranky, you have a bad day at work. But the three things that really define mental illness, or the depression side of mental illness, are your mood, your momentum, and your motivation. Your mood, your momentum, your motivation. Mood, like just how are you feeling? Someone who is stuck in a depressive place, often it's overwhelming sadness, hopelessness, sometimes a desire to kind of just get away from everything. When we talk about momentum, we're talking about your energy level, your ability to move. If you are a depression struggler like me, you know what I'm talking about, where the morning comes and you can't get out of bed. But it's not like you're like, well, of course I can't get out of bed. I ran a marathon yesterday. I'm exhausted. Nope. We're not talking about that. Just saying, like, I don't have the energy to get out of bed today. It's a struggle. When we talk about motivation, we talk about a desire to do things, a desire to make changes. Those are the three things that folks who struggle with depression really get hit with, is their mood, their momentum, and their motivation. It's very different from just kind of these ordinary moments of sadness that we might have, or ordinary grief we might feel after a bad day or after a loss in our family. This is stuff that happens with no explanation. Sometimes it comes from the inside, sometimes it comes from the outside. And what I mean by that is, on the inside, there could be some biological causes. Two big things that play a role could be your brain chemistry being off. Your brain is just an organ in your body that helps you think, and sometimes it doesn't work the same way your pancreas might not work, the same way your heart might not work properly. Another thing is your thyroid. That's one thing when I work with patients and clients, I ask, like, have you had your thyroid checked? Because the thyroid also contributes to your brain and your body and the chemistry between all of it. But when I talk about external, outside sources, maybe you're just going through a phase of life where the things that are going on are more than you can bear. And it puts you in this place where you're stuck with low mood, momentum, and motivation. And then heaven help you if you're like me and you have both of that going on, where the body and mind are already waging war, and then stuff is going on the outside, and then you're 28 years old crying in your parents' living room. You can laugh, it's okay. It's not funny, Chris. You're 28 crying in your parents' living room. But we don't see the humor here. That's all right. It's funny to me. I've healed. I'm past it. What I want you guys to know more than anything about depression, especially if you're not a depression struggler, but if you are a depression struggler, it's good for us all to get this out in the air. What depression does to a person is it isolates us and it attacks our worth. If you're a depression struggler like me, you're like, yes, that's absolutely correct. If you are not a depression struggler, but you love a depression struggler, this is what they go through. Depression has a way of making us just isolate ourselves from the world. We want to be alone. We don't want to be around people. We even feel burdensome. We're just like, hey, like, I know you're my friends. I don't want to bother you with what I'm going through because it doesn't make sense to me. Surely it's not going to make sense to you. And, like, I know you guys just want to go, like, watch a movie and have dinner. Like, you don't need, like, we just want to isolate ourselves and our worth. We don't believe we should feel better. We believe this is how we're meant to feel when we're stuck. And that's what depression does, is it isolates us and it makes us doubt our worth. We're going to see this in the Bible. And if you don't have a Bible, there's a couple ways you can get connected with one. We give them out free here at Forefront. All you got to do is drop by the Get Connected table out in the lobby, and they'll give you one if you like. There's also some digital avenues, Bible apps on your phone. You can go to forefrontchurch.info and get hooked up there with notes and stuff as well. But what I want to do is I want to read a passage out of the Old Testament. And this is a longer passage than what we might typically go through on a Sunday morning, but it's because I want you to hear some raw emotion that is in the Bible. It's in Psalm 88. I'm just going to read this. It says, "Lord, you are the God who saves me. Day and night I cry out to you. May my prayer come before you. Turn your ear to my cry. I am overwhelmed with troubles, and my life draws near to death. I am counted among those who go down to the pit. I am like one without strength. I am set apart with the dead, like the slain who lie in the grave, whom you remember no more, who are cut off from your care. You have put me in the lowest pit, in the darkest depths. Your wrath lies heavily on me. You have overwhelmed me with all your waves. You have taken from me my closest friends and have made me repulsive to them. I am confined and cannot escape. My eyes are dim with grief. I call to you, Lord, every day. I spread out my hands to you. Do you show your wonders to the dead? Do their spirits rise up and praise you? Is your love declared in the grave, your faithfulness in destruction? Are your wonders known in the place of darkness, or your righteous deeds in the land of oblivion? But I cry to you for help. Lord, in the morning my prayer comes before you. Why, Lord, do you reject me and hide your face from me? From my youth I have suffered and been close to death. I have borne your terrors and I am in despair. Your wrath has swept over me. Your terrors have destroyed me. All day long they surround me like a flood. They have completely engulfed me. You have taken me from friend and neighbor. Darkness is my closest friend. Darkness is my closest friend." And that's the end of this passage. This is not one of those Bible passages where someone expresses their struggle or their complaints and then they bring it back to a good, happy place like, but God is so good and he cares for us. It's true and it's in the Bible and I believe all that, but this is a raw poem of emotion, of depression. I believe this person is in the depths of depression. Darkness is my closest friend. This passage is in the Bible for a reason. Because I believe it's okay for us to have those feelings. I believe it's okay for us to wrestle with those thoughts. One of the things that I've noticed is that the church and Christians in general sometimes do a really poor job of letting these things be okay. Sometimes we get the message across like, man, have faith, follow Jesus, and like we're going to be happy and things are going to be good and he's going to take care and fix everything. And there's some truth to some of those thoughts. Like, I have faith in Jesus. That's why I'm here talking to you guys today. But it's okay to just say, dude, sometimes it's rough. And I feel like if I was God, which I'm not, which is probably good for all of you, but I feel like if I was God and I was putting together a holy book, I would leave stuff like that out. Like, he's talking mad. He's throwing so much shade on me right now. I got to take that out of the Bible. But he leaves it in there because he wants us to know, like, you're going to have these feelings. That's not the only passage in the Bible that has that tone. They're all over. You just have to look for them and find them. There's another psalm I want us to read, another poem from that same book of the Bible that takes that sentiment and gives us a little shift in our perspective. And this is Psalm 23. And again, we'll just read this. It says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Because here's the thing, what depression does is it isolates us and it attacks our worth. But what God does is God walks with us and he affirms our value. Nowhere in that passage did it say there won't be problems. He says, though I walk in the dark valley, though I have enemies, you're with me. He walks with us and affirms our value. He provides companionship. He provides comfort, but he never promises a cure. Whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, whether it's something else that you're struggling with in your life, we're never promised a cure, but we are promised comfort, and we are promised his companionship. One of the things I'm thankful for as a depression struggler, and if you're a depression struggler, I want you to know that's a promise for you, is that he provides you with comfort and companionship. And one of the ways he's done this, and I'm so thankful for this, is as there are so many people in the world now who are working so hard to figure out how to knock depression out. You know, and I shared with you, I had doctors and therapists and family, people helping me out. I told you, my doctor saved my life. There's a checklist of things that I think we can talk through for a minute. If you're a depression struggler, things to keep in mind. Community is so important if you're going through depression. And I know the gut instinct is to stay away, and the gut instinct is to isolate yourself, but community is so important. Now, I don't mean you need to go out and hang out with hundreds of people all the time. One of my best things for community that I have is I have like a little text message group in my phone with some of my best buds, and I'll just text like, man, it's just one of those days for me today. And they don't even like try to talk me out of it. Sometimes they're just like, okay, thumbs up. They're like, we're acknowledging what you said. Because they know that I don't need them to like try to fix me or solve the problem. I just need them to know. And I just need them to pray. And sometimes I need them to kick my butt a little bit. But that's the community that's important to me. But the gut instinct is to isolate, but community helps heal. And as I alluded to you earlier, exercise and diet are huge. If you're a depression struggler, I urge you, look into exercise, look into diet, what you're eating. You don't have to become a marathon runner, Exhibit A right here. But I will tell you, ever since I put regular exercise into my life, my depression struggle has dropped. As I started paying attention to what I eat, less sugar, less processed foods, my depression struggle has dropped. I'm a big believer in therapy. One, I do it for a living, so it's good to toe the company line, but I'm a big believer in therapy, having an unbiased professional that can talk to you about your life. When I'm working with a client, I tell I got basically two things I'm here to do. One, I really want to encourage you. I also want to call you on your nonsense in the most loving way possible, but I want to call you on your nonsense. And the reason a therapist is good for that is because a therapist is not biased towards you. Your friends are biased towards you. Your spouse is biased towards you, for better or for worse. Whichever way that bias leans, it's in there. A therapist is not biased, and a therapist is also trained through education and history of the working of the human mind and emotions. Everybody doesn't need therapy all the time, but I'm a big believer in therapy. If you're a depression struggler, let someone into that bubble. Medication. I'm a big believer in medication. I'm not embarrassed to tell you guys that I take antidepressants. I've been on them, I've been off them, currently on them. I need them. Everybody doesn't need them for everything, but some of us do. And if you're responsible, you talk to a doctor and you weigh the pros and cons and you pay attention to what's going on, use medication if necessary and helpful. I believe it saved my life. I wouldn't be here presenting to you today if I didn't engage in that process. And then faith. And I don't mean like faith in Jesus, that's a part of it, but faith in the process. Faith that you can work through this. Having faith that community, healthy choices, therapy, medication can help you. I remember, the way it speaks to me in the big picture is having faith that there's more going on in the world than your experience. So I told you guys earlier, in 2014, my dad passed away unexpectedly. About 6 months after, I got a phone call from a friend of mine who I hadn't seen for a while. And she said, hey, my mom just died of cancer just out of nowhere. She's a young gal in her early 20s. Didn't really have any friends or family in the area. She said, can we talk? And I was like, in my head, I was like, no, this is way too raw for me. I'm 6 months into this. I'm not the person. Of course, I went and we talked, and she's like, I just need to know I'm not crazy. She's like, I cry, I'm sad, but then I want to go fight somebody. I'm like, no, that's about right. That's how it is. You get sad, you want to drop bows on people, that's what it's like going through a loss like that. And, I would never ask for the events in my life to go the way they did, but I'm thankful that I'm able to see the bigger picture sometimes. And at least find something good that can come from that. So that when somebody says, hey, I just lost my mom, can I talk to you just to make sure I'm not crazy? It's like, I don't know if I'll make you not feel crazy. We can be crazy together, though. How's that? Sometimes what's going on around us is bigger, and that I have faith in that process sometimes, if I'm being honest. I know it's true. I don't always feel it, though. Pastor John Piper, he kind of talks about depression like this. He says it's of great advantage to the struggling Christian to remember that seasons of darkness are normal in the Christian life. I don't mean that we should not try to live above them. I mean that if we do not succeed, we're not lost and we're not alone. As the fragment of our faith cleaves to Christ. What he's saying is we'll have moments, whether it's just that bad day or whether we are in a deeper mental health pit with anxiety, depression, or whatever it is. He says we will have those moments, and even if we can't overcome them, we're not alone and we're not lost, because there's still a fragment inside of us that can cling to Jesus. And for those of us in the community, in the faith community, a big part of that for us is just learning, preparing ourselves. People need us to be aware of what's going on, y'all. I'm not saying we all have to walk out of here as mental health experts or anything like that, but we need to be aware of what's going on in our communities. I know there are people in this room right now who have seen what depression, anxiety, and mental health can do to a family. I know some of us have experienced it to the ultimate end. We need to be better at dealing with it as a community. We have to learn how to love one another through this. There's a story about Jesus in the book of Luke, and talks about a guy who's paralyzed. Jesus is doing his thing. He's out teaching, preaching, doing miracles, helping, healing, all this stuff. And I'll just tell you what happened right here. We'll read a couple verses. It says, some men came carrying a paralyzed man on a mat and tried to take him into the house to lay him before Jesus. When they could not find a way to do this because of the crowd, they went up on the roof and lowered him on his mat through the tiles into the middle of the crowd right in front of Jesus. Now, this passage trips me out because it's 2 sentences, but it's like a whole story going on there. They have their friend that he can't walk, he can't move. They can't get him to Jesus because the house is crowded. So their idea is let's get him on the roof. The guy who can't walk or move, we can get him on the roof. Brilliant. But that's what happens. They get him. They're like, he's getting to Jesus. And if these people ain't going to get out of the way, we're going to have to go up on the roof. So they get him on the roof, and I don't know. I imagine, at least when I pictured it in my head, that they're like having to knock a hole in the roof. There might have been a hole, I don't know. But that's how I picture it, because I imagine these guys just being bold here. So they're like, we got to get him on the roof. We're going to bust a hole down there. We're going to get him in to see Jesus. And so they do, and they get him in. And the story goes, and Jesus forgives the man of his sins and heals him, and he walks. I want to be the kind of person that will grab my friend, put him on the roof, and knock him through a hole to get him some help. That's what we need to be. Again, I don't expect anybody in here to walk out a mental health expert. I don't expect you guys to be like, whoa, thanks to Chris, I'm going to go study psychology. And I don't care about that. Some of y'all should, but most of y'all probably shouldn't. What I do want is for your heart to be in a place where you say, whatever these folks need, I'll do what it takes to get them there. And if that means opening your house up so that your friend just has a place to come and sob when he's sad and he doesn't know why, or if that means kicking his butt a little bit, like, bro, you got to get to the doctor. Got to get you there. It's not always pleasant. I don't imagine grabbing a man, taking him on the roof, and lowering him in the house as a pleasant experience, but it was necessary. And as people who love Jesus, we need to carry people where they need to go. Because depression isolates us and attacks our worth. And God walks with us and affirms our value. And one of the most beautiful ways that actually plays out is when our community carries us through. That's who we are. That's who we should be. We need to be better about it. There's a comedian by the name of Patton Oswalt. And funny dude. This is my second R rating warning in this one sermon today. I was going to find a clip, but I couldn't do it. Not for church. But he's been very open about depression and anxiety in his comedy. And in recent years, he's been in the spotlight for losing his wife suddenly overnight. And in his most recent stand-up special, he talks about it very open, very raw, very entertaining somehow. Like, what's it like? He's very self-deprecating. He's like, I'm a short, fat, white comedian who's depressed. And I'm trying to raise a girl and figure out how to make money being funny. And he talks about this struggle. And he did an interview about depression, and I really like what he had to say. He kind of goes into it like this. He says, my depression and my ego are two things that I treat equally, just like this, where I go, oh, here you go. He talks to his depression like it's a person. Oh, here you go. What do you want now? All right, okay. Oh, I'm not going to give you that, but we'll do this. How about that? Is that reasonable? Like, he basically negotiates. He's like, my depression wants me to stay in and eat a pizza and drink a six-pack. Well, no, depression, we're not going to do that. My anxiety wants me to, stay in the house and never talk to anybody. Well, no, anxiety, we're not going to do that. And that's his way of coping and processing it. But he goes on, and it gets real, powerful here. He says, George Saunders said, when you deny a fault in yourself, you've made it 10 times more powerful. And now you have two faults, the fault you had and the lie you're telling yourself about it. So he'll have these, he's like, all right, depression, we're not doing this. All right, anxiety, we're not doing this. He's like, I'm going to take it. I'm going to treat it for what it is. Otherwise, it's just going to get worse. If you're a depression struggler, you got to be open with yourself about what's going on. Don't hide it. I'm not saying put it on blast for everybody to see, but don't hide it. Don't keep it to yourself. It will get worse. If you love somebody who's a depression struggler, don't hide it. Learn about it. Ask questions. Read. We can't keep watching people hurt. We can't keep hurting ourselves. We have to be better. I have to be better. I'm going to close with a passage from the New Testament. Apostle Paul writes this. It's in 2 Corinthians, and he says, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses. I will own it. I will talk about it. I will put it out there, so that Christ's power may rest on me. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. My fellow depression strugglers, when you're stuck in that sadness, his grace is sufficient for you. When you have those thoughts in your head that you're terrified to put out there because you don't know how they're going to be heard, his grace is sufficient for you. When you're stuck, when you don't know what to do, his grace is sufficient for you. For those of us who love depression strugglers or who know depression strugglers, when we are ignorant about what's going on, his grace is sufficient for us. When we want to learn and we want to support, his grace is sufficient for us. His grace is sufficient for me. His grace is sufficient for you. Pray for us. Father God, thank you for this opportunity we have to be together, to open up about things that we just don't talk about enough. We trust your words that your grace is sufficient. Lord, I know in this room that there are depression strugglers, and there are people who love depression strugglers. And I just pray that you would give the depression strugglers peace, that you would give the depression strugglers comfort, that you would give those who love depression strugglers wisdom, that you would give us guidance. And for all of us involved, would we just lay down our pride and be honest about what's going on? We trust you to comfort us. We trust you to bring us through. Pray in Jesus' name.
Thanks for tuning in to the Forefront Church video podcast. Our hope and prayer is that this has left you encouraged and challenged you in your faith. And you might have some questions and some ways that you want to figure this out, and we want to help with that. Head over to forefrontchurch.info, and there's a couple different ways that you can connect. Click the Connect tab and let us know how we can be praying for you, or a staff member can be contacting you this week. Maybe you have just been encouraged by this and want to support the ministry here at Forefront Church. You can click the Giving tab, as well as other tabs that are in there to help you along in your journey with God. And so we're thankful for you. Thanks for tuning in, and we cannot wait to see you again here online on the video podcast. We love you, and we'll see you then.